Well, hello friends, this here is David Vos. Today is February the 29th, 2016. It's good to see everybody today. Well, I haven't been able to do a lot of videos in the last few days. I've been trying to get this cabin moved out to my property and stuff, and that's turning into be a fiasco. But anyway, but I wanted to get back into this series because I thought it was best, instead of starting at the beginning, to really just sort of go into the middle of it. Now, I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not, but today I want to go ahead and go from the beginning. Let's start from the very beginning. Not sure that this has ever been done. I'm not sure that you'll ever go someplace and find the history of the world 1 million years BC. But that's what we're going to try and do. Now, I know there's some other books in the world that purport to be history, but you wouldn't know if they're real or true or if it's just somebody's novel. This is the history of the world, and I believe most of all of this can be verified with the ancient annals of history. We've got Sumerian tablets, Babylonian tablets, Akkadian tablets, Egyptian tablets, Egyptian writing on the walls, plates. We've got biblical references and scores of other books, Apocrypha, hidden, Gnostic, and esoteric writings that were written by people who actually read the histories that we can't even read today. We're not even allowed to read, but they were allowed to read it maybe 1,000 years ago. Herodotus, Pliny, Pythagoras, well, not Pythagoras, but Ptolemy and Philo and Josephus, many other writings, historians, and works. And we can put all this together, and you can see that what I'm saying is true. Now, what I'm doing is putting it together. I've been given a picture of this, and an understanding of the history of the world, and it's been put into my mind to be able to put this out forward so that you can understand really what's going on. Excuse me, I have something in my eye, and I don't know what it is. But, so let's start from the beginning. I don't even know where to begin except the beginning, but, well, as all of you know, there's a lot of questions. I think I'll just kind of weave in some of these questions and then start telling you some of the history from the beginning. But I think a lot of you are still kind of hung up on, if all of this is true, then why didn't Jesus just say, this is my Father, and this is his name, and this is who he is, and make this plain. What is this so confusing for? Well, I'll tell you why it's confusing. Because it was written originally in a different language. And it's been translated to Latin. And then in different various versions of English, Old English. The difference between English today and Old English is probably even more striking than English and Spanish. Because the difference is that you can read Old English, but you don't understand it. Because the words in ancient Old English times didn't mean the same things they do now. And they didn't have access to all of the ancient records, and they were ignorant of what the meaning of the thing was when they were writing it. Today we have a lot more knowledge about the ancient times. And so, today when we read where Jesus says, my Father in heaven, and we read where it says the kingdom of heaven, you would never know, because the scholars don't know. It's not that they're lying to you all the time. Sometimes they're really lying because they see something that doesn't line up with their teachings, so they just ignore it. I consider that a lie. Sometimes they cover it up. But that's because they don't really believe their eyes. See, they're indoctrinated. They think they're right, and they're just going to try and spare you of this knowledge that pops up that makes it look like they're wrong, because they think, well, there's got to be something we don't know, and we're just going to hide that because that'll confuse them. See, it's sincerity. Most people are sincere. Most of these scholars, they don't go in there thinking, okay, I'm going to deceive everybody. I'm going to lie to everybody. Nobody's really trying to lie to anybody. Now, what happens is pride comes in, and people use pride to say, oh, well, I know I'm wrong about this, but I don't want to be wrong, and I don't want people to know I'm wrong, or, I've been believing this all my life. We got to convince people this is true, because what would happen if they don't have a God, or if they don't believe in Jesus, they could die and go to hell, and so they're all confused and scared, running like little scared rabbits. So nobody's really trying to hurt you. They're just trying to hurt you. But, so, remember what I told you in a prior video. Tiamat, Chronos, Annos. Okay, well, I don't know if you've noticed it, but when Jesus says the kingdom of heaven, in Greek that is the kingdom of Uranos. Annos is the heaven, which is Anu. And you say, well, that's just because the Greeks worship false deities and it got inserted into our book, and so Jesus had to use the Greek language, so he's saying Anu, but he didn't really believe in Anu. See? Besides, Jesus didn't speak Greek. He's Hebrew. He's a Jew. Oh boy, we've got so many lies going at us from every angle. We don't even know what to think. I'll tell you something. The New Testament was written in Greek. Not by Jews, but by the Essenes, who were a group of people that had separated from Judaism hundreds of years prior, during the Greek period when they took over and desecrated the temple in Jerusalem. And the Zadokite priesthood separated and had joined the mystery schools under the prophet Elijah, and traced their lineage back to Egypt, and not through the line that was there on the throne in Judea, but all the way back to Joseph in Egypt. So they had far more knowledge of what was really going on, and they weren't opposed to the Greek mythology. Neither were the apostles. Remember, Peter used the word Tartarus, which is the Greek realm of the lowest place. In our Bible, abyss. Peter, James, John all used the word Hades. That's a Greek god. And they used the word Apollyon, who was imprisoned there. And they all, instead of using Hebrew words, they used Greek words. And so Jesus said, my Father, who is in Uranos. Now, if you go back to the Sumerian ancient tablets, Anu was the father of the gods at one point. Remember now, before him there was Alalu. Before that it was Mama, Mamu. And the original god who set up the succession of kings, or the succession of the gods, was An. This is the person that's represented there with the city of An, or On, in Egypt. All of the gods have their descent from An. And at that time, now I'm about to tell you something that's going to rock your world and shake your mind into a pudding if you don't be careful. Now hang on to your hats, friends, because, I could lie to you. I could give you some kind of a little story, make you feel better, but I'm going to tell you the truth. All right? I have to tell you what the book says. I'm not going to just say, well, they can't handle the truth, so I'm going to tell them a story. I'm going to tell you what the book says. But most of you Christians are going to flip this off right away, because you're going to say, well, see, now there it proves it right there. He's come out and said it. He believes in evolution. Well, friends, I'm going to tell you what the Sumerian tablets believed, which is very, very ancient writing, which is the history of the Sumerians. It's the same story in the Babylonian text, and it's the same story in our Bibles. It's the same story. Now I'm going to give you the beginning of the story, the part that's left out in our Bible. It says that on Nibiru, they had evolved for millions of years. Now it says that, point blank, They evolved. And the species got brighter and smarter, and there were four-legged creatures, and there were bugs and ants and all kinds of different sort of creatures that evolved until finally they got standing up on 2 feet, and they started using tools and sticks, and they started turning their sticks into weapons, and then they started turning their weapons into bombs, and then they started turning their bombs into nuclear bombs, and then they got space travel, and they're at the point on this planet Nibiru where they're about to wipe out the entire universe. That's how far they had advanced. Millions of years. Now, it's pretty strange to me that you can go back in time and here's a story like that which contradicts everything that you want to believe within your heart, because this is not what you were told by your pastor. This isn't the Christianity you know, so you're saying, well, that's it. I'm done. Because you see, I wanted to know the truth until you started telling it to me. Now I don't want to know it because, you see, you must be a liar. I don't want to hear it. No. This is, look, this book is far, far older than anything you've ever heard before. And I'm just telling you what it says. Now, it seems strange to me that when we find out what the book really says, what our Bible really was taken as an excerpt out of, what we find out is that the story actually makes more sense. As long as you're a scientific person, it makes more sense than you ever dreamed. Because you see, back when you were religious, you were worshiping superstitious mythological gods, fairies, and had wings and sitting around a throne, and this God sitting up there in the space and time, right? Eternal, omniscient, omnipotent. He's a guy with a big beard, right? Looks just like you and me, got a big white beard, and he's been up there for all eternity, and there's these flying fairies all around him in a row saying, holy, holy, holy. Now, you really think that's the truth? Wake up. That's not the truth. And I'm telling you what all of this symbolism and mythological stuff came from. Came from the most ancient writings. They're in Egypt, and they're in Sumer. And according to these ancient books, they evolved for millions of years on Nibiru. But here's what happened. An had 2 sons. They began to fight. There was the northern kingdom and there was the southern kingdom. And they couldn't get along. This is why they were about to wipe each other off the face of the earth. Same thing's happening here today. And the northern kingdom were the white people, and the southern kingdom were the black people. And they just couldn't get along. So, what they did was, finally, king after king, and war after war, and millions of years, and evolution, and all of this, and finally it comes down to a king named An. And An decided to build a city called Agad, which means unity. So he tried to unify the entire kingdom of Nibiru. And in doing that, he had to take and unify the 2 lines, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And the way he did that was he took his son from the northern kingdom and he made him marry a daughter from the southern kingdom. This is the same story we have in the Bible with King Solomon marrying the Queen of Sheba from the south. And so, the succession of kings has been for hundreds of thousands of years, down through the succession of kings on Nibiru, and even down to this day on this planet. It has been that the High King is a product of the northern kingdoms married to the High Queen, who would be from the south. And so this is why when you get to the stories of the kingship and the meddling on earth and all of the lines of the kings, we have a mixture of a king marrying other kingdoms to unify the kingdoms, and it happens to be the Queen of Sheba. So, now what we've got, let's recap. Jesus kept saying, Our Father Uranus, which is the Greek word for the Sumerian Anu. I want to, right, let's just stop right there for a second. A lot of Christians are going to say, well, now, hang on, Dave. What you're doing is completely taking away everything we've ever known to be true. Because Jesus is God. And he's one with his Father, and there's a Trinity. And there's a Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now you're saying that Jesus is a son in a long succession of kings all the way back to an ancient king on some other planet. That's it, friends. You already knew that Jesus was the son of his Father, that he said, I do nothing but what I see my Father doing. He says that my Father is greater than I am. And wouldn't it be more reasonable to believe that our Bible, most of you say it's inspired, but you want to say, but it's inspired, you can't change it. What you really mean is you can't change our church doctrine. Because when I actually go back to the actual inspired words, irano, and say that means anu, which has always been the father of the gods for thousands and thousands of years, sometimes called El, as his personal name, you start getting all upset. Because you see, now you can't be taking it that literal. You can't be using the actual inspired word and saying it's actually inspired and true. Oh, no. It's inspired, but only inspired as it's come down through our own church. See, the Holy Catholic Church is the only church you can belong to, and that's all you can believe because that's what we believe. See? You got to do this. Om the Father in the name of the Holy Ghost. Friends, that's not the inspired word of our Father in heaven, our Father Iranos. See, in the days of Jesus, he was in the days of peoples walking around in Greek culture, and they had Father Iranos, who gave birth to Tiamat and Mamu. See? Time. Heaven gives birth to time and matter. And these evolve and give birth to the other gods. And this took millions of years. And so they take literal kings that actually existed millions of years ago, and they don't tell you their real name. For all we know, this guy could have been named Bob, Harry, Bill. It doesn't matter. They give you the names as a symbol so that that king and his marriage plays a part like a drama, an ancient symbolic drama of the evolution of the earth for thousands of years. Now, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a king that we're going to call Anu who didn't have a line in succession of kings. I'm telling you that story. The story goes that they had wars, and they were in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and they had racial divide, and they almost obliterated each other. And the way they solved it was by uniting the two peoples. Say, well, Dave, what's that have to do with human beings? Here we are in America. We've got a black president who's half black and half white. He came here to sort of appease different religions and satisfy and bring together many peoples. But it's not working because, you see, we've got somebody, just like on Nibiru, who's always trying to upset the cart. Always trying to put suspicion in there. This is why I'm doing these videos, so that people can learn and understand not to be afraid, not to be judgmental, not to be harsh, but to wake up, smell the coffee, because it's time to wake up. So, you've got a lot of people are saying, who really is this character Enlil? Who's this Enlil god? Enlil's name was changed to Bel. And as I've said in all my videos, Bel and Baal and the bull is the same. And that's the goat god. And that's, what a lot of people to this day are worshiping. But really, he just represents fate. Enlil, or Baal, is in the Bible all the way through. Now, he was there, and Israel worshipped him for a long time. But he wasn't the one who gave the law. Inki Iyah, that was his brother. He's the one who gave the law and wrote the DNA. But Enlil was more of a hard-nosed, he just went by the book. It was just fate. He was the one that set up the succession of kings. That's the way it had to be. You could not change that. The law was supreme. The law of Nibiru. That was fate. That was the will of the fate. I'll have a lot of people that's been asking me, well, if Christ had a son, why? We're supposed to worship Jesus. That's all we know. Jesus got to be worshiped, and you got to do this, and then you get saved, and that's all we know. So we're talking about he had a son. What? That doesn't make sense. Now my mind's just spinning. What good did that do? That he came and he died and left a son, and then his son went to Europe. Well, I told you the purpose for this. Christ has got to be born in you. Now, how do you think Christ is going to be born in you? We've already found out that the world was created or evolved. Scientific information, friends. Reality, not mythology. Truth. You guys want to know the truth? This is the truth. For millions of years, the universe has been evolving and growing. And we've been, as souls, transmigrating from species to species and from glory to glory. Even as is done by the Lord. It says that in your own Bibles. So this is scientific information. This isn't mythology. When it says in the Bible that Jesus is going to be born in you, or Christ will be born in you, why should you be surprised that there's going to be some scientific reality to this? And not just some, hokey pokey, alakazam. You do this and you're saved, right? That's what you believe. And you're more, to you, that is far more hardcore truth than a scientific, evidence-based reality. If I told you that you've got a genetic code in each of your cells, and if I told you that 200 years ago, you'd hang me on a cross and burn me till I was a crisp. You'd torture me first for about 2 days, and then you'd pull out my thumbnails, and then you'd hang me up on a cross. Okay, they did it before, many times. They did that to Jesus too, right? They beat him, they whipped him. They punctured his side with a spear. This is how people are when they don't get the answer that they want. And some of you aren't getting the answer that you want. But you see, this is the factual reality. Christ has got to be born in us. From the days of An, when the gods came to the earth, they began to mix with mankind. Now, it wasn't some little, oops, our Father in heaven said, oh my goodness, my children are down there marrying men. And now what am I going to do? It's messed up my whole creation. No, that's not the truth. The whole story of the New Testament is Christ in you. See, God's going to come down and die. This is the whole story. You've got an inner man that's being born. And you've got to crucify the flesh and become a new creation. You're going to be sons of the living God, friends. And how is this going to take place? By some, transubstantiation of the wafer? No, this is going to take place by the transubstantiation of the divine DNA that is put inside of you through birth, through the actual life and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, who was a long line of kings back to An, in the city of An, who in the days of Jesus came to the earth and died, had a son, and sent Mary Magdalene to Europe. And from that point, put a piece of that seed in every nation on the face of the earth. And there is your transubstantiation. Because like I said, Israel, it says in the book of Hosea, is like seed. And you want a literal scripture? You want verse by verse? This is it. I'll try to write the correct verse on the screen before I put this up. But it says that Israel is God's seed. He planted it in the earth. And the whole world's going to become one by means of the seed and the planting that our Father did with Jesus Christ. And Israel are those 12 gods that came down and entered into our genome. And it's represented by Jesus. In ancient Greek mythology, they also called Iranos protogenos. Now, proto is first, and genos is where we get the word gene. It's also where we get the word birth or life. So the first birth or the firstborn are the gods. And they are the firstborn. They were born before the flesh. And they are born in us, in the flesh, but they're before the flesh. And the flesh is only the vehicle for the evolution of the mind. And so, friends, Jesus was put upon the earth to have a child, just as his father, his mother, the Virgin, had a child, and her father and her mother before, and all the way back to Anne, who started the succession of the kings or the gods on Nibiru millions of years ago. And today, in America, every nation on earth that was nurtured and cultivated was brought to this country to make one people under God, indivisible, with justice for all. There's no conspiracy, friends. He loves you. This is his divine manifest destiny, the Constitution of the United States, which is liberty for all. And this is why every nation on earth is coming here. This was the promised land, the ancient Atlantis, beyond the rivers of Egypt. Now, if you're in Palestine and you're looking west, you're going to look beyond the rivers, because you see there's the Nile River, right? That's the only river. But when the Nile River goes north, it breaks up into all these little rivers like this, like a hand. And then the Nile goes down it through Africa. Well, the rivers are up here in the Goshen. So if you're in Palestine and you look across the rivers of Ethiopia, you come to the Straits of Gibraltar, and you go all the way from there to America, and that's Zion. Extreme opposite sides of the earth. And this was destiny, where they planned to make the last kingdom on earth and unite the earth with the two seeds and all the seeds so that we could live in peace. But now what we've got to do is understand what's going on so that we can love one another, so we can forgive one another and accept reality and stop listening to mythologies. Now, all of this ancient works that you've read has been translated and retranslated, and then those who understood it literally were, cursed and told that they were excommunicated, they were allowed to, join the club anymore. And so then they decided, they were getting, figuring out the symbols, so they rewrote it and made the symbols even harder, and anytime somebody figured stuff out, they took that part of the Bible out and threw it away and burned it. And about 100 years ago, all we had left was 66 books, which told you right there, 66, that it was incomplete. We didn't have it all. So then in 1945, we started digging up all these other ancient Gnostic Gospels. And in the 1800s, and about 1845, 1850, we started digging up Sumerian tablets and uncovering Egyptian works and tablets. And the truth is getting out now. The only problem is it's not getting into your heart because you've been deceived, because Marduk is running around in this world, the Antichrist, who rules over us right now through our lusts, through our ignorance, through our deception. And he's just about wiped out the truth at the very same time that the truth is being manifested and being revealed. See, here we've got the truth, we've got the books, and we're looking at it and we refuse to believe it. No, it can't be. I'm going to believe my master who's beat me and whipped me and demanded that I serve and obey him, and I can't even have freedom. But I'm going to believe what he told me, because he told me if I think for myself, I'm going to go to hell. So you don't want to listen to the book that's ancient and old, written by the fathers who knew the truth, in the long line of tradition of the kings who come down through Jesus. You don't want to believe Jesus himself. And so you see, An is millions of years ago and is really a symbol. It is a symbol of the source of all of the ancient spiritual teachings. Because you see, the two suns represent two different things. As it starts in time on the planet Nibiru, it represented two kings, two races, and a line of kings all the way down through earth, and all of this is literal. But as it, in respect to its spiritual significance, it represents the seed of the spirit and the flesh that's been fighting for eternity. It's the reality of the universe in its scientific terms. It is positive and negative. It is that which creates all things. It is that fight and it's that struggle that gives us life. Those two forces combined, when they join forces, create worlds, create peace, and create life. See, the flesh and the spirit inseparably joined for eternal joy. This is how we will achieve that eternal joy, by combining the physical realm with the spiritual realm. It is when the physical realm finally becomes aware of the spiritual realm and creates this unity, then we have eternal joy and peace. And every one of us is going and evolving towards that eventuality. And so from the beginning of time, the physical and the spiritual, they didn't understand each other, but they had to live together, and they had to become one. And this is the great mystery, the wedding. See, heaven and earth marry. Anu marries Ki. Uranus marries Gia. Gi, Ki, it's really the same deity. It's heaven and earth is that beautiful existence in which we partake. And we're somewhere in the middle, experiencing the beautiful heaven and experiencing the beautiful earth as a conscious being. So our Lord Jesus Christ represents that final creation of our Father. And we here today are all experiencing the United States of America and the Great Experiment and the harmony and the bringing together in the harmony of all nations. And all we've got to do now, friends, is understand it, wake up, and get the truth out. So, friends, that's all I've got to say. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. And you guys, I hope you have a great day. We'll talk about this again tomorrow. Here's David Vos signing out.